Welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices, the podcast dedicated to bringing you diverse, innovative leadership insights and actionable strategies for success. Join hosts Laura McNeil and Bob Medeiros as they explore the art and science of role model leadership through thought-provoking conversations with real professionals. Whether you're a seasoned leader or aspiring to excellence, Sterling Visionary Voices is your guide to navigating the complexities of your leadership journey.
One characteristic that distinguishes a leader from other leaders as a role model is the distinct ability to create and sustain a culture of hardwired alignment. Alignment between the workforce and its evolving strategic priorities, where these strategic priorities are likewise designed to distinguish the organization from its competitors as a role model. With us here today is Ken Perry, seasoned project manager, certified in Agile, university professor and consultant, revisiting us this time to share his insights on innovation for the sake of organizational resiliency, sustainability, and breakthrough benefit. Welcome to Visionary Voices, Ken. Let's start with why you chose this topic to talk about today.
Well, first off, Laura, thanks for having me again. So I appreciate that. It's always fun when you reach out and ask for a topic that you and I both have passion about or we both find of interest. And when you did that over the weekend, the thought literally immediately popped in my head of how businesses fail to look into the future. What does the future hold? What do we need to do different in order to survive? And this stemmed back from 2019. I was invited to speak from a project manager perspective at a disruption conference in downtown Boston, my hometown. So it was easy to get there, plenty of places to stay. And I sat there for 3 days with my mouth wide open. I looked like an idiot, I'm sure, with all this information being thrown at me. And it wasn't all about, gee, Ken, you are this certain age and you're missing the boat. The folks that were speaking about disruption look like me now. And this made me feel comfortable. The other is that everyone, all ages, were talking about we can't do it this way. And one of the things that I had said to you, Laura, is there's a soundbite, if you will. 7 most expensive words in business are, we've always done it that way. So the keynote speaker, I forget his name, but he was wearing a T-shirt that said, "Do Epic S." You can fill in with the S's. But what he did, he showed on his PowerPoint the companies that were in the Fortune 50 today, 2019, back then, and who were in the Fortune 50 20 years ago. And the landscape completely changed. Companies you don't even hear of anymore, gone. Why? Companies you recently heard of. Number 2, number 3. What happened? What's the difference? So one of the things that we did is when we put together notes for this talk today, I just did a quick search on the companies that were 20 years ago and where are we today? And one thing that did not surprise me at all is in 20 years ago and today, Walmart was number 1. So how did they innovate? Walmart has reinvented itself a few times. So 20 years ago, could you buy groceries at Walmart? I don't think so. 20 years ago, Walmart did not buy small failing stores and call them Walmart markets. Also, Walmart learned from their mistakes. I recently finished working 4 years at Baptist Hospital System here in Jacksonville. And one of the things that were distressing leaders at the hospital is that many of their very good primary care physicians were being wooed away by Walmart wanting to open up their own medical primary care offices. And the money they were offering these physicians was crazy. Well, that was 3 years ago. And I remember reading just a few months ago that Walmart is exiting that business because it's not profitable from an insurance perspective and waiting for those payments back. It wasn't good for business. The one thing that Walmart does do is they realize what their core competency is. I will tell you, I've been going to Walmart for 30 years now since I moved to Florida. They didn't have any in Massachusetts when I lived there. And I've never been mistreated. I've never been ignored. The place is always clean. There's stuff on the shelves. And I remember reading about how brutal the buyers are to the suppliers. Well, if everyone else does that, Amazon does it. So that's unfortunately how it works. So getting back to innovation, Walmart number 1 20 years ago, Walmart number 1 today, because they're not reinventing themselves completely, but they're reinventing, I'm going to say, the experience. And what made me think about it when I saw the Walmart both lists is that we were there at the weekend, my wife and myself, and what I saw is they completely redesigned their checkout areas. It was traditionally rows of registers with maybe four people working in long lines. Then they went to self-service. That was annoying because so many people would, I don't know how this works. So what Walmart has done is reinvented that. So now when you get this one line that feeds everybody, and then they have four expediters anywhere at any given point, either helping you out immediately for a self-service or pointing you to a register that's open with a human being. So now you zip through. You're not getting in the slow line. You're getting to the next available machine or person. That's innovation. It's also cut down on shoplifting, which you know has been a terrible, terrible epidemic since before COVID. And when so many stores went to the self-service, stuff was just walking out the door. So Walmart's even looked at that, and they've made it, I'm going to say, not brutal. It is Walmart. Now, the other thing that surprised me, no, that was sarcasm, Amazon is on that list that wasn't there 20 years ago. Who knew you'd be buying almost everything from a place named after a river in Brazil? Who knew? Here's the thing that surprised me, not in a good way, is that I noticed that Intel and Hewlett-Packard are not on the list at all in 2024. Why is that? Apple was not on the list in 2004. They're right up there today. Why? One of the things that I remember reading ages ago before I got my first Apple device is that the PC companies want you to be happy with your device. Apple wants you to love your device. What do they do different? Apple has customer service. They have knowledgeable people. It's not the end result of owning an Apple phone or an iPad or earpods. It's the experience in using them. And if there's a problem, they'll address them for you. And oftentimes, even though your device is out of warranty, they'll give you another one. Why is that? It's cheaper to do that than having everyone say, Apple screwed me over. So they're innovating not only their experience, but as you know, every year that they introduce their devices. They just did one yesterday. And what has changed from last time? So you see these companies are reinventing either their experience or reinventing their products. So that innovation is what keeps them alive. And if you've always done it that way, no, it's not going to happen.
That's a really good analogy because just this morning when I was watching the morning news, they had a clip on Apple and how Apple came out with their iPhone 16 and it has medical device capability. It has hearing aid capabilities in the iPod earphones.
Well, look what they've done. Several years ago, I remember watching, I think it was a TV show or a movie that was originally broadcast in 2018. Everybody's wearing Fitbits. If you ask somebody now what's a Fitbit,
They won't remember.
Think about it. The phone is tied to the watch. My wife has an Apple Watch, and she can monitor her heart and oxygen rate. How do they do that? How do they do that? Also, too, you think about it, an Apple Watch transcends across the entire culture. It transcends across your economic level, how much your net worth is. I see people who are struggling every day with an Apple Watch. I see people who show up in a Lamborghini with an Apple Watch. And to your point is that what a nice way to get medical information. And if you have some issues, what a great way to get that in one place and then send it to your physician. There's innovation, absolutely.
Back in the 80s, I wrote a paper for a marketing prof that I had in college. Early 80s, this is 1980 or 81. I was a big Apple user and advocate. I have an Apple II. I still have my Apple II computer. The paper I wrote said that Apple is going to transcend the challenges of time. They were nothing back in 80. They were really focused mostly on education, creativity and education. He was devout IBM, and he took me down to the mat on my speech that I gave, saying I was crazy. There's no way that Apple is going to extend beyond the capabilities of IBM. But to your point, IBM chose to stick with the mainframes. They chose not deliberately to go to the mini computers or the microcomputers or the personal computers initially. They wanted to stick to the mainframe market. And I think that was a pivot point for them to your point, they did not embrace the challenges of time and the consumer needs and desires. The leadership was not focused on sustainability, resiliency over time, shifting for the convenience of the consumer.
You just made me think about something. I remember reading, I think it was in Business Week, maybe about 2 years ago. It was right after Bed Bath & Beyond announced that they were shutting down, and that both Bed Bath & Beyond and Toys R Us were approached by Amazon to partner. Not, we're going to take you over, we're the 800-pound gorilla, to partner. And they both said, no, we're fine. We don't need you. And that's the we've always done it that way mentality. And that didn't work out, unfortunately.
Exactly. You can't ride a surfboard and sustain stability without constantly shifting your position and your weight and rebalancing as the wave is changing below your feet. That was a quote that I personally put in my doctoral dissertation as a closing note for good business leaders. In order to maintain sustainability and stability and resiliency, you have to constantly be shifting. Stability is seen through constant shift.
You think about the folks that have done that, and they've also learned from their mistakes. And that, I think, is the number one resistance for folks who do not want to innovate or disrupt. They're afraid of making a mistake, a public mistake, and how to recover from it. And I think you and I have had our heads handed to us enough times in our lives where we take that as a learning experience versus, well, that was stupid.
Right.
And we work from that. And also researching for this talk, I found a book called The CEO Next Door. And one of the things that mark a good CEO is they've made a very public mistake in their past and learned from it versus let it define them. But I want to pivot a little bit from the business world, is that let's look at people who are popular in culture. I don't care whether they're a sports figure or entertainment. They reinvent themselves on a regular basis in order to stay relevant. They will look at the trends and adopt their style in order to stay relevant. The other thing, too, that is a tie into both business and entertainment or sports is that what are they trying to do? Are they trying to be a star? Or are they trying to be the big company that everybody's afraid of or in awe of? Or are they trying to focus on the customer experience? So you look at folks, let's just stick with entertainment for a minute. Do you have an artist or a star? If you take out the controversy with someone like Johnny Depp, that man has reinvented himself several times from being a teenager all the way up to where he is now. I think he's close to 60, if not over. But he has redefined himself in all the roles that he's more interested in versus trying to be one thing, a star, famous. So you look at folks in sport, everybody's admired Shaq, who has reinvented himself since he finished his career in basketball as a business person, as a philanthropist, as a spokesperson for causes that make sense, treat people well. So same idea is that the experience that these folks are trying to offer, whether it be business, sports, or entertainment, that's the reinvention, that's the disruption, and also the risk. And if it doesn't go right, you learn from it. Now, that's, I think, the fear that so many people are working within, is that they don't want to fail publicly. The other thing that I see in companies that don't do well is when they look for a new CEO, they want that CEO to come up with the next biggest thing that's going to put them on the map. That's not a disruption. That, to me, is just business as usual. We want you to be a rainmaker. Well, give me the tools to be a rainmaker. And they don't do that. Whether it be budget-wise, or they focus on stock price, or focus on dividends, they don't do that. Give the company, give the people that work there what they need to do their job. And let's come up with some ideas. Let's go back to business again, okay? I mentioned about the 7 most expensive wars. We've always done it that way. And then the thing that people miss that I learned when I was getting my MBA is that folks who've done extremely well find a niche, fill it, and make people want it even more. Who knew that you could make money by looking at stuff online? And who knew that many years from when that first came out, we'd be using the term Google as a verb, and you can make money on that. Who knew that you could photograph yourself doing either smart things or dumb things and get paid for that? Who knew? They find a niche and fill it. And to me, that is business 101. The other thing that folks don't understand, which helps you to be an innovator, is there's a huge difference between marketing and sales. What I learned in my MBA program is that sales is providing that need and building a relationship. Most people think sales is buy it now, buy it now, buy it now, buy it now. What can I do to get you in this car today? And marketing is creating the need. So which one should you be? Don't tell me that I'm in sales and marketing. I have a sister-in-law that will tell you that. She has an education. She has a good work experience, but she'll tell me that she's in sales and marketing. Yeah, but your company is slowly dying. Well, that's not my fault. Well, it kind of is because you work there. And if you don't know the difference, I can't help you. Now, that's a tough thing. And I want to circle back to a documentary that I saw about maybe 12 years ago. It was when AT&T did their first layoffs in the 90s, and then they visited several people at the beginning and then also several years later. And the folks who did not reinvent themselves found themselves underemployed or chronically unemployed. This is what I've done. This is all I've done. This is all I know. They don't know how to take their life experience, their work experience, and repackage it. In my current role, I'm not a project manager, I'm a release manager. So I'm responsible for releasing a ton of software on a regular basis that requires every little piece part. There are about 158 data points in each request that we have, times 20 per release, several times a month. Wow, what is that going to do with project management? Everything. Everything because that's what you want it to do. Everything because my experience has led me up to these folks finding something. Then my experience and how I presented myself, yeah, Ken, let's take you on. And goodness gracious, they realized that getting a project manager who knows how things work and how they're connected, I'm allowed to reinvent myself to a different role. And then they hired someone else after me because of that much work. Same thing. His experience has just been like mine. The credentials that you mentioned at the top of this podcast, the experience that you mentioned that we've had, you and I've had together, but he's using all of his experience doing the same thing because it's systems thinking, not linear thinking, and taking some risks. You know what? I'll just try this thing. What else? What the heck? So that reinvention is taking personal risk or taking corporate risk and also not listening to the shareholder whining about stock price. That's how business stays alive. You want to stay in business or do you want to get a quick dividend? Well, most people say quick dividend, but that's also how they think. So you can see that this is a whole different way to think about how we approach work, business, our personal time even, that change is good. Change is going to happen no matter what. And there's some people who resist it with every bit of their being. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be put out to pasture until I'm good and ready. And I think anyone else working to stay awake, stay alive, contribute in society wants the same thing. So that's why I feel, that's why I feel that it's okay to shake things up. Otherwise, you're just going to wither on the vines.
If I could summarize, I would say reinvent.
Yes.
Don't be afraid.
Yes.
Reinvent. Don't be afraid. Know when to exit.
Yes. Let me just close up here. That one of the things that I also did to prepare for this podcast is a friend of mine sent me, just because we're a car person, he sent me a 30-minute video. Tesla has reinvented their manufacturing process again. What they've done is their cars that they've been building over the years and that new gigantic Cybertruck thing, which I find it's hilarious. That's a disruptive thing, don't you think?
Absolutely.
They have cut down the manufacturing process by 70%. They have eliminated the smaller components by that much because Mr. Musk says, I don't care about profit. I'm making money. I care about making it so I can build these things cheaper, easier, faster, more reliable. He's talking about experience. He's talking about what people see at the end, not about an individual transaction. People might not like him that work for him. I don't want to work 24 hours a day personally. He tells the folks who work for him, go do better every day. And that's the only electric car company that is making money. So this fits what you just said to summarize. If we don't do this and know when to stop, that's a problem.
Great points, Ken. Great points. I love your approach and the message you're conveying. Well, thanks for spending time with us today. And thanks for choosing this topic. I've really enjoyed it, learned a little bit, had a walk down memory alley for a couple of minutes there, but it's been insightful.
You're very, very welcome. And I thank you for reaching out. And I'm glad that this is something that you also found interesting. And I look forward to the next time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Sterling Visionary Voices, Insights for Role Model Leadership from the Sterling Council. Discover more and connect with us at sterlingvisionaryvoices.com.